is more expensive than some universities. So why do you think the focus should be on uni, or as that being the bulk of the
Well, I think that university kind of defines your career trajectory. It's the last space between you and the workspace, the working environment, and so the university that you go to really matters. I think when I sit down and look at CVs for people who are coming to work at the organization, I'm not so bothered which primary school you went to and which high school you went to and what grades you even got. Were you able to function well in a university space, especially for entry-level jobs? That's what you're looking for. So I think to spend and say, hey, look, I have a first-class honors from UON, or I have a degree from Oxford or Harvard or whichever other one it is, that opens doors that probably the fact that you went to whichever high school it is may not. It may be a good thing for the experience, but I think later on in life, the areas that people are judging and looking for is that final university college experience.
Yeah, you're right.
Not that it's not good.
No,
I mean, you can spend there, but I'm just saying, think about the priorities that you have.
I hear you, because no one ever says, it's not the high schools that we're like, oh, it's an Ivy League high school. Like it's really just the unis. And some universities, we spoke to one of the top plastic surgeons in Hollywood right now, in Beverly Hills right now. And he said immediately he was accepted into Harvard. He hadn't even finished. He was still in his first year. He had a job offer. He was like, finish, you're going to get, and that job offer was going to be able to cover all his expenses. And they even gave him like an advance.
Yes.
And so it's the uni. No one's like, you went to what high school?
Well, I don't know that it functions exactly the same here.
Maybe not here, no.
But the fact that you would have a university degree already sets you apart.
Right.
Because if you think about it, you have, I think it's like 10 million students now in primary school, at whatever level it is in primary school, and then the number keeps reducing. And so that right now you have about 100,000 students graduating into the market every year. Here in Kenya. So that's already set you apart, being one of those 100,000. If you have from a better university, or if you've had that opportunity, it gives you a leg up. And that's where I'd say, and then the real issue is that it's probably the biggest cost that you're going to have. And sometimes we don't understand the cost that's going to come later on. Because right now, you're talking about 1 million to 1.5 million if you're doing a private degree locally for 4 years.
A year?
No.
Oh, for 4
years.
years. 1.5 million.
Yes,
for
so
4
like
years.
the parallel program, those different things that are there. So if you're looking, I think we both have really small kids, for 2 years old. So like for the 2-year-old, we have 16 years to plan. So it will not be 1.5 million for them when they get there. It'll be a much larger number, probably 6-7 million shillings by the time it's that 16 years from now, just to begin to think about for a 4-year degree locally. So if you don't plan with that in mind, then it can be a really huge cost that you didn't think about. So I like this because I still remember vividly when I was in primary school, we had some friends who did college, IB, the 2 years just bridging course between high school and university. And I think they were paying 22,000 shillings a term. This is when I was in primary school. And that seemed like so much money. And now you go to a nursery school for preschool students, and they are paying more than double what we were paying for college then.
Oh my gosh. You're right. I mean, when you said 22,000, I wish that's what we were paying for IB right now. Oh my goodness.
So, and this is within our lifetime. So understand that was not a very long time ago. So if you're saying 16 years, so you're planning with 16 years in mind, please know that it'll cost more than what you think it costs you.
Okay, all right. So as you're creating your spending plan and like trying to map out what it is that you want for your family, whether it's a home, investments, where should education fall on that list of priorities? How important is it to have an education fund? Or just some kind of like spending plan around that?
I think it's vital. I think in our culture, having an education matters. It matters a lot. Maybe not as much as it did for my parents' generation, because for them, having simply gone through school meant that you had a job for sure. The fact that you go through school now does not mean that you will have a job or that you have necessarily a clarity on your career trajectory.
Yeah.
But what hopefully the school process gives you is the ability to function in the world. That's hopefully what it does for you. In fact, I'm always taken back to the university. You know, when you're graduating, the words that are usually spoken, now you have been given the power to read. You know, not to go and get a job or to do anything. You've the power to learn, to read, and to grow. So hopefully that's the process. But in terms of priorities, I think it's vital. It may not be, I know this sounds a bit controversial, it may not be as effective as it was a couple of generations ago, because having a degree now does not necessarily mean that you'll have a job or that you're job ready.
Yeah.
We interview often right now, and we're always shocked. We're like, you went to university?
Yeah.
How is that so? You don't have the broadness of thought.
Okay.
And I think that's where the discussion, because you were asking about high school. So I think if you go to the right schools, it may broaden your mind in the ability to work with other human beings and question things. And probably that's been one of the biggest issues with the 844 system here, is that it's been learn and regurgitate. It's never question, it's never problem solving. It's not the ability to work with other people and try and see what the future holds. So I'm so excited when they start talking about new education systems, because I think there'll be opportunity there. But I think you as a parent can take control of your children's education plan and say, how do I empower my kids to function in a world that's changing every 15 minutes?
Yeah. In fact, what I even wanted to say is, in as much as, you know, getting a job, I mean, getting a degree doesn't guarantee you a job. It also doesn't mean that you're going to be jobless. I mean, there's the number of people who've dropped out of, and this isn't to say drop out of high school, okay? But the number of people who've dropped out and still been able to create something.
Yes.
So I don't even know if it's as simple as get a job, get a degree equals success or impact.
Yeah.
I think it does help, and I think there's lots about it that, like you said, it's even besides outside of the education, there's so much to learn from being in a university. But I think it's interesting also to note that right, you could also not have gone to uni and still be like this incredibly impactful, successful human being who's contributing actively to the world.
Yeah, but the process of learning is always there, whether it's business, whether it's tech, because I think, yes, all the kids now are talking about, yes, Bill Gates dropped out and formed the biggest company in the world. Yes, Zuckerberg didn't finish his Harvard degree when he started the whole Facebook thing. Yeah, no problem. But understand, both Gates and Zuckerberg had started coding early on in life. So if your child is extremely gifted at coding, maybe give them that experience to grow, but understand that they didn't just create Facebook in 1 year.
Yeah.
He had been producing lots of work before that, and the interest was there, and the exposure was there, and he was there at the right time with the right idea in order to bring that. Now, I don't know, my children are brilliant, but I don't know whether they have the right idea at the right time at the right place.
Okay.
So I want to give them the best experience that they can have. And so if you see, I think this is important for the spending idea. If you see gifting in your children, spend on it.
So it's not just school fees, that's all I'm going to focus on. But if you see, they're
Abilities.
talented in piano. I mean, right now there was someone playing the trumpet or saxophone, I don't know. So if you see that, see if, hey, do you want to take extra classes?
Why not? No.
Do you want to try another?
No, don't say do you want to. If you see it, as parents, just give them the opportunity. Because as children, they can't see what that opportunity will be. Give it to them. Show them that process of learning. Because many times it's not what you learn, but that you have the ability to understand that it takes time. I learned to play the guitar, and it means blisters. It means sore fingers for a period of time. But after a period of time, then you become confident and are able to do what you're going to do. That taught me that there's a process to learning. So it's not necessarily exactly what they're getting into that matters so much, but they learn the discipline. Even that's what sport does.
Oh, yeah.
Sport gives you that discipline to understand teamwork. It helps you understand preparedness, practice, all those different things. So if you see talent in your children, spend on it. Many times we don't spend on what matters to our kids. So we're happy to send them to that school that will make sure they get an A, but it has stolen their soul. They don't have any life in that A. Whereas we could have spent a little bit probably on that music class that they wanted to go to, or
Sports,
coding that they wanted to learn, or
like a sports camp they wanted to go for.
Listen, the other day, I was watching this documentary. They have now, I mean, international video game competitions which can earn people serious money. There are professional video game players around the world. I mean, that's...
It sounds ridiculous.
But they're earning more than doctors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
At age 16.
Oh, yeah.
They're earning more than your senior doctors here in Kenya. So when you see gifting in your children, I think it's so important to nurture it and to build it, because the opportunities are massive now in this world. And I think maybe that's what's so confusing for us as parents, is that there's so much you could do. Which one do you choose? And I think it's so important that as parents we say, this is what's important, let's choose one, go down this path and see what's going to happen. And then because it builds the discipline, then you see what happens through that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got to take a break. When we come back, I'll ask Waithaka to give us like an actual detailed breakdown. How do we actually save and create an education budget for our children? We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. We are talking to Waithaka Gatumia about education policies, funds, budgets. What do we need to do in order to make sure that that we've got our children covered when it comes to school, and also even outside of school? How are we supporting them? During the break, we were even talking about how one of the richest person on YouTube right now is a young boy who reviews toys for a living. And you were saying he makes $20 million a year or something ridiculous like that, you know? And so it's not even just so much supporting them and like, go to school, I've paid your school fees, that's all. But it's a more holistic approach. But now I really want to dive deep into actually creating structures that will allow parents to be able to afford education, and then specifically uni, because before the break you did say that that is where majority of the cost lies. So what can a parent do today if they're watching this? Maybe the person is pregnant, maybe their child is 5, 6, 7, 2 years old. What can they start doing today that will help them get to where they want to be?
So like with any financial plan that you're going to have, you must have a goal. So I love that when we were having the discussion beforehand, you're saying you had identified the type of university. In fact, you named 2 or 3 universities that you'd like your children to go to. Yeah. That's a very powerful thing, because then you're being specific. When you're specific like that, there's an actual cost. So in Centonomy, we train, it sounds simple, but it matters. So everyone has a dream. But you have to be able to transfer your dream into a goal, transform it, into a goal, and a goal has a timeline and a cost. So in your case, you have 16 years, and the current cost for that education is, I think it's something like 3 million today, let's say for a university degree. So 16 years from now, it will not be 3 million. Probably it may be closer to 10 million, let's say about 16 years from now. I'm just giving some averages. You can work out that cost. Which is a big part of what we train, like in the classes, there's a process called time value of money, where you're compounding just to get an idea of what the future cost will be. And so once you know what that cost is, you look into the future and compound it based on inflation or the cost of education. Yeah. And then you say, great, so 10 million is what I need 16 years from now, so that my daughter goes to university. Okay. Now you have a goal. So vision, everybody has vision, yes. But the difference is you turn your vision into a goal, which means you have a cost and a timeline. Right. And once you have a cost and a timeline, then you can take action. So those are the 3 points. Yeah. You have vision, goal, action. So now, 10 million 3 years from now. Okay. What investments are going to get me to 10 million 3 years from now?
No, 16 years
16
from
years,
now.
sorry, 16 years from now, yes. So I have, I can start saving and putting into a piggy bank where there's no interest at all. So you can actually break it down every month, every day, what do I need to put aside? Yeah. It's a simple calculation that you can do. So 10 million, you break it down by months, years, until you get to where you are. Then you say, okay, the likelihood of just saving with no interest is not going to be so great. So then you move to the next option, saving in a bank account, for instance, in a savings account that will give you 4 to 6%, depending on which bank that you're in. And you do the calculation, break it down, and you work back and say, okay, that's still quite heavy. Then you now look at what other investment opportunities there are. It's wonderful. We're having the discussion before that you already are getting into a space like money market, where you're getting a better return on your investment, still with relative security. Yeah. But I suggest, and we talk about it seriously in Centonomy, that these are big goals. Yeah. So we were working it out for an Ivy League type university course for my children, let's say. My daughter who's 4, I now have, it is 14 years to go. Then it will be just over 30 million for that kind of, your Harvard, your Yale, those different kind of schools that are there. Just over 30 million. So because that's a big goal, I know it is big.
Ooh, 30 million is a big number.
It is, and in a 14-year period. Yeah. But when you break it down to the discipline that you're going to be going through, it means that you must find a good investment with a high return. Definitely there'll be more risk, but the thing is, because you have time to recover. So the issue is, how can you invest aggressively, boldly enough to get to that goal? That's what we're trying to get. Because it's so easy to sit back and say, oh, but I need security, I need all these things, but you're not really aiming for a goal. And the thing is, with any investment, you must be personally invested in that. You must spend the time. Investments don't just grow by themselves. There's no just, Anything that's passively done, passively you just put money and you hope that it's going to grow, there's not much growth that's going to happen there. But when you're actively involved and you say, I'm interested, so I'm busy trying to run a business, I'm growing in my career, I'm going to put some money in some investments in real estate, I'll put some money in the stock market, I'm actively involved in trying to get to that goal, then the possibility becomes more real. Just to whet your appetite, just so that you understand why financial planning is so important. So we did the calculation and it just blew our mind. I think it's 16, when we started the idea, we talked about it almost at the same level, 16-year period, yeah? And we did the calculation of just over 30 million and I have 16 years. Yeah. If I was to find an investment that can give me a return of about 30% on average for that period of time, that's just about 400 shillings a day. So the thing is, we easily spend 400 shillings wherever you're going, but we'll not easily invest that 400 shillings with the potential for that return. So now, let's be calm now. I know I said that just to get you. I said that to get you.
I'm like, thank you so much for coming, Malaka. This was great.
Please let me complete, because I don't leave it hanging.
I mean, go on.
So there are two vital factors.
30% is very high.
Yes. So how do you find investments that give you a return of about 30%? And then can you consistently, for 16 years, put aside 400 shillings every day? Every day. Yeah. Every day. That's where the difference is. But if you did, the mathematics is simple. You get to that point. So what kind of investments can give you that rate of return? It's mostly going to be some form of business. It's either your business or that you're invested in another business, like for instance, private equity or through the stock exchange. That's where you're getting those high returns. Is it going to be consistent? No. There'll be years that goes up, comes down, but on average, can you average a good rate of return? Yes, it's possible. I believe we're just getting some statistics that the Nairobi Securities Exchange, the last 20 years, has averaged about, I think it's 15 to 17%. So that's a big deal. That's averaged with some of the companies that have struggled. But what if we invested actively in the companies that have done well? Then the likelihood is that average would have increased. And then you say, okay, good. So if at 30%, I only need to invest 400 shillings a day, what if I bring it down to, let's say, about 15%, which is half? Could I invest 1,000 shillings or 2,000 shillings a day? Do you see what I'm talking about? And hopefully, if you aim high and you say that's the goal, even if you didn't quite get to it, maybe not the Ivy League, which other university around this world could you not send your children to? You've got a lot more options.
And who knows, maybe they'll get a scholarship, maybe they'll have a job and they'll have been able to save up a little.
Yes. So the thing is, we have to be passionately involved in our investments, just the same way that we have to be passionately involved in our children's life, be passionately involved in your own life. Because that's the thing, many of us live life half-hearted. We're kind of not really involved in our job, not really investing. You hope your children are going to go to the right school, and you're kind of outsourcing parenting. That doesn't work. You have to be involved as a parent in your children's life. So be involved. Because we've realized, we've been dealing with some businesses at St. Anthony. We also train entrepreneurs. And so we went to different businesses and we're trying to look at some of the success factors. And if you look at generational businesses that have worked, it's that they brought their children in really early, so that the children understand the business process, so that school is simply just adding value. But they already understand this is how the business works. Everywhere I go, I just talk to people about how I went to the butchery near our place and I was served by a 7-year-old. He was on holiday. And you can imagine at 7, by the time he's 18, what does he know about running a business? How to deal with clients, how to deal with workers, how to deal with payroll, how to deal with all these different things. He doesn't need to go to university to learn about business. When he goes to university, he's learning, how do I grow my business? How do I get investments into the business? How do I scale the business? But he understands business already. Yeah,
because he's asking the right questions now. He's not starting from ground zero. He understands the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you asked the question of the planning.
Yeah.
So in general at St. Anthony, we try and encourage everybody comes through our classes that think about pre-primary, primary, and high school as being funded primarily from your from your income,
Salary,
monthly
yeah.
income, salary, whatever income
Yeah.
it is, your business,
Okay,
all those
yeah.
things, because generally you should be able to cover that cost.
Okay.
The biggest cost that you're going to have education-wise is usually those tertiary education, university, college, and any kind of certification that somebody may need in their career path.
Right, yeah.
And so probably the highest investment should be
Okay.
going in that direction, and then you survive on the rest of your budget over that period
Yeah.
of time.
I have
That's a
question,
thought
yeah.
process for
I have a question for you with regards to that. What if someone feels like, well, high school is something that I also feel is important.
Yeah.
It's also like it's some of the most formative years of a child, and I want them to go to, I don't know, high school X, which
Yes.
costs $1 million a year or whatever. $1 million a year, and it's 6 years
Yeah.
or 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of money too.
It
So do they
is,
just
yeah.
like take on that kind of school of thought, or
You've
you
just
know,
done
and
it.
just like
You've-
minimize it's that.
In 2 seconds, you've done the
Okay.
financial plan.
Okay.
You said, I have now 10 years
Yeah.
before my daughter goes to university. I mean to high school. This is a high school that I want. What kind of investments do I need to do so that I can get to that point, including increasing my income so that I can be able to cover a term cost of 1 million shillings. You see, we were training high income individuals recently, and in the room that I was training, the average income was about 1 million shillings a month. So even from their monthly income, that 1 million shillings a year, possibly, of the fees can come from your monthly income, because you have worked to that point. That's you have to understand. The process is the same. It is, what's the vision? So you've said, I want to go to a certain type of school, and then the goal makes it, I have 10 years, and the cost is this amount per year. So what actions do I need to take now in order to achieve that? So it means maybe increase my monthly income. So I have to be better at my job, of more value to my organization. And if they don't value me, I find an organization that I can be of value to, that will get that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious to know what you think of education policies, like getting an education policy.
The issue with education policies, now I'm assuming you're talking about an insurance type policy, and many of them have a payout by the time the education comes through. So there are two elements that you have. It's kind of an investment, but it has an insurance element that states that should anything happen and you're unable to pay or you're not there, it depends on the policy that you're going for, they will pay for the children's education. So that's really important. But because they have to give you some kind of guarantee of a return, and I don't even think most policies say guarantee, but they want to say that our target is to give you a return of, let's say, 7-10% per year growth, so that you get this amount. They have to be really conservative with their investments in order to give you that return.
Right.
So in order to achieve your goal, your monthly payments or your monthly installments are much higher in order to achieve the same goal.
Okay.
So you can either increase your monthly installments in that policy to achieve the goal, because many times it's not with a goal in mind. It's that I want my children to go, so the insurance salesperson will come to you and say, hey, so you want 2 million in 16 years, but we've just talked about it, 2 million will not even cover 2 years of the school that you want to go to. But it sounds like a lot today because university is about 1.5. So yes, you could do that, but have you actually worked it out? So to achieve that 10 million, or whatever it is that you need, work backwards and say, what installments do I need to put into this? And then many times you'll find that there are other investments you could put your money into that will get you to that faster with a higher rate of return. However, get insurance.
Okay. Oh, so you still...
Be insured.
Okay.
So maybe a life policy that pays out so that your children can have a monthly income of some kind, maybe a life policy that gives lump sum that can be able to take care of them. Insurance is important because we don't know what the future is going to be, but mixing insurance and investment, not always the most efficient way to get to where you want to go. It's a good way to do it, but always make sure it's in line with your goal. If it's paying out less than what you hope at that time, then how are you going to fix that gap? And if it's not, can you increase your payments, or can you find a better way to invest towards that goal?
Wow. I mean, what I'm really getting is that there's no passive role. You don't just sit and it's like, it's going to figure itself out. Just put money here, forget about it. But you really need to be actively involved.
Thank you.
All right, we've got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more from Waithaka. Welcome back, everybody. We've been talking about education funds and budgeting and making sure you've got everything ready for when you need to pay for school fees. And we went and asked you guys what you do when it comes to back to school, because that's still a part of the whole education budget, right? So are you a last minute shopper, or do you take time and plan when it comes to back to school expenses? So take a look at what some of you had to say.
We prepare in advance when the children are in holiday, maybe the last week before they open the school. Yeah.
And do you have any cost-cutting tips when it comes to back-to-school shopping?
Yeah, there is discount before the schools open, but when you come to the rush hours, you find it is very difficult to get at a discount.
I don't look for so expensive things because if you compare them, they are expensive, but they are not quality than the cheaper ones. So they are just expensive for no reason.
You only shop the important things, like detergents, stationery, yeah.
Do you have any preferred stores when it comes to back-to-school shopping and any sales?
Me personally, of course, for shoes, I will always go to Bata. Yes, for uniforms, I'll go to this called Mwini Mbingu, always.
You know, when I go shopping, I go with them. And I try to tell them to pick. But when they are picking, I see the demand, you know. I will only tell them, please, can you just reduce for this and this?
All right, so interesting to hear what you guys had to say. I'm curious to know how you do it. Do you budget for back to school, or are you a last minute shopper?
Please do budget for back to school. I think one of the things, let me be honest, because sometimes I think, it sounds like, oh, this guy is just perfect and his life is everything. No, it's not. I'm a human being, my wife is too.
Yeah.
And for years we've been talking to people and saying, hey, pay your January bills in December.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it makes such a huge difference to do so. So do the school shop in December for the next year. Do the back to school shop, buying books and all those different things, school uniform, all those things. It makes such a huge difference. You may save a little bit, maybe not significantly in terms of money, but in terms of life pressure and just stress, your mindset, it shifts your whole beginning of the year.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues is that we are not at our maximum in January because we are stressed. So if you can find any way to deal with your stress, pay for stuff in December and the year begins well.
Yeah.
The other thing that we found is that when you shop with convenience as your primary idea, you'll always pay more. So this one we discovered very recently.
Okay.
So we're buying school uniform for the kids, and so we paid, and then we're just like, this cost is so high. And I think it was a random discussion that we're having in the house, and our house help, she's just amazing. She's called Dina, and she mentioned, you paid what for the school fee, for the school uniform? Yeah. The place that we buy, it's much cheaper. And so she's now the one who buys the school uniform for us as well. So she found where she buys uniform for her kids, it's not your mall or whatever it is, but it's the same uniform that you're going to buy, almost half the cost.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Yes.
Again, take an active role.
Yes, no, well, no, please, this was not...
No,
this was not us being really, it was by chance that it happened, but it made me think and say, what else are we paying for significantly more? I mean, we talk about it across all areas of investments and savings, that yes, buy in bulk. So that means you go to a place that you're going to be able to buy wholesale prices and things like that. But we'd never thought about it in that perspective, that the fact that it's on a high street or it's in a mall, that there's an extra cost you're paying, getting it from a different supplier, the same uniform that they're going to grow out of in 2 minutes.
Oh yeah,
doesn't
or
matter.
Lose.
I
can't tell you the number of sweaters I left behind.
My kids gave up. I mean, my parents gave up on us when we were in school. They said they're not buying us any more sweaters. That I got used to life without a sweater because we lost them all.
That was my mother too. She was like, I don't care where you get a sweater from, but you're not getting a cold because I'm also not taking you to hospital and I'm not buying you a sweater. Figure it out.
Yes. So if you're going to deal with that, then you better be paying a good price for what you're spending on. So a thought like that, maybe not buying from the high streets or the malls and going somewhere else to find, but it takes action on your part, and you make a saving, a significant saving, especially when you think about it over the number of years and the number of uniforms, trousers, skirts, sweaters that you're going to buy.
There's also other costs involved. You know, there's like school lunches, school trips, or even transport maybe. So how do you then work around that when you're creating a budget? Because I think even as we were talking earlier, if we're talking about Ivy League school, you know, if they're going to Harvard, I don't know if you had been thinking about, well, that means a flight there and back, that means visa application. Yes. So should you work all of that into it, or how do you budget for that?
Be as detailed as possible. Same thing even now with your, even preschool. Yeah. There's costs that go into preschool. I think the latest cost that I saw that came home was, I think they're doing now roller skating or something at the preschool. No. Yes, so they're learning those different things. So the activities are great, but you also have to understand what really matters. So if it's something that matters to you, spend on it, but have a plan. Have a plan for what you want to achieve. So think about it. Actually do the calculations and figure out, if I'm paying $8,000 a month for school transport, what would the difference be if we figured out a way to carpool with our neighbors? Because that's if our neighbors are all going in the same direction. You drop them in the morning, and in the evening you pick the other parent picks them up. Could that be a significant saving? Most likely it would be, because the extra cost, and maybe leaving home a bit earlier might get you to that place. I mean, all these are choices that you have to make, and begin to think about the whole cost, and then break it down and say, how can we make a difference along the way? And involve your children in it.
That was going to be my next question.
Yes, get them involved and say, what are you thinking? What matters? Is this important to you for this term? What's a school lunch like? What's the experience carrying lunch? What would make a difference for you as a child? And when you're doing that, you're showing them the patterns, because they learn how to figure out where do I put my money? What's the priorities when it comes to my money? What's the priority when it comes to understanding the budgeting process? Because you see, this is a big issue that we have locally with budgeting, and then we've seen it across the board. This is how many people budget. I earn 200,000 shillings. So I spend from 200,000 shillings this amount on rent. This amount. So I start with what I earn, not with what I need. Do you get what I'm talking about?
All right. So you are suggesting.
I'm suggesting, come back and say, what do I need? What am I aiming for? Then you budget that way, rather than with what I have, this is where I allocate where it goes.
But how does that work? Okay, so then first I guess you have to know what is a need and a want. Is that it? So if I need, but can you give me an actual example?
One of the best ways to begin is to see where your money actually goes. Okay. So one of the problems is many people don't know where their money goes. So they know where the rent goes, they know when all the bills that are generally there that you don't have a choice about, even your loan repayments, you pay. Everything. But then there's cash that kind of is not there, is not clear, that was not allocated, especially when you have what is the problem of the middle and upper class, a thing called disposable income. That's a big issue. And even that attitude that there's an income that is disposable, if your income is disposable, please send it to me. I don't mind accepting it on your behalf. So we talk about it in the class and we say, track your spending, see where your money actually goes. First of all, it'll shock you. Then you come back and say, now let's make active choices about where this money goes. Not that you stop spending on the things that are important to you, but you'll find money that you didn't know that you had beforehand. Maybe you're spending too much on one item or the other. Then now you go to your budget and say, great, this is what I can be able to achieve with what I already have. Rather than coming with, this is the total, and this is how we teach our children, the same thing. We give them 2,000 bob, let's say, to go out on a weekend. And they will spend all the 2,000 bob, because it was not about what they wanted to do. It was that now I have 2,000 bob, what can I achieve with 2,000 bob? Do you see the lessons that we begin to learn, rather than asking, what would you like to do? And parents, here's a good tip. Don't give them just enough for what they're going to do. Give them a little bit more. Give them some discretion, especially teenagers, so that they begin to make decisions. If you have taught them, you needed 1,200 shillings for the things you wanted to do. Go to a movie, popcorn and come home. give them 2K. What are you going to do with that 800 shillings that's left over? That's an amazing opportunity to begin to teach them the saving and investment plan patterns for their lives.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So when it comes to involving kids, do you think you should actually say, hey, your school fees, if you want to go to this uni, if you want to go to University of Nairobi, this is how much it's going to cost and this is what we need to. Should you involve them? Because I've also seen some parents take on the route of, well, it's not their burden. And really, you know,
maybe
I
not that level.
So how involved should you get a child
in the planning?
This discussion?
So I was saying for that, maybe too, I don't know how early you have that discussion about college. I was talking about get them involved in terms of, this is a discussion we have with our 10-year-old at home. So there's opportunities for all these different extracurricular activities. You can do dance, you can do music, you can do the different sports out there. So we sit down with her and say, which one?
Okay.
Because...
Do you talk about the costs? That's what I was
No.
Do you ever talk about the costs with them?
The idea is that they all cost money.
Okay.
So when we're speaking to her, we're saying, which one would you like? Because we cannot pay for every single thing that's out there. And if you pay for every single thing, you're not going to become great at each one of them. So we've been focused on saying, if you're learning a new skill, we'll pay until you've learned the skill. So pick the thing that you want. So it's dance, good. So this year, we're paying for dance. So that you'll become good. At the end of the year, you'll do a great performance and you'll have learned the processes behind. Next year, it's something else, maybe rollerblading or whatever it is that is there. And you pay for that with their understanding that you want them to get to a certain level of expertise and growth. So it's not just one of those things. I think it's the same thing with all these soccer leagues, small leagues for children that are going on. I love it because parents are saying, I'm investing in my kids' opportunity to grow, learn teamwork, all these things. But it can't be 1 week it's soccer, the next week it's swimming, the next week it's something. And paying for all these things at the same time, you're not getting any focus. You also need to teach your children focus. Being a master of all things, it's not possible. The jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades.
It's not good for you.
I get it. And maybe to start with, they could sample each one to have an idea,
and
but you want to focus.
Yes.
Man,
and get them involved.
Yeah, get them involved. Thank you so much, Waithaka. I know there's an open day coming.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that, the theme, what can people expect?
So this Saturday, All Saints Cathedral, 4th of May. The theme is making bold investment choices. And you have to make bold choices for your children's education because the cost is extremely high. So we've got a wonderful panel of guests. You can check it out on Centonomy.com, Centonomy on Facebook, all the different social media. But it's a free open day, All Saints Cathedral, starting at exactly 10 a.m. Please come.
Making bold choices.
Yes.
Ooh, and we've just learned, I mean,
you have to.
Yeah, you have to. You can't just like sort of take a passive role and assume things will work out. I'll never, I mean, that 400 bob math that you just did blew my mind. If you understand how, you can use this space, whether it's the stock market
then it helps you value every shilling that comes in your pocket. There's no such thing as small money. You worked hard for it, make it work for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good way to end this. All right, thank you so much, Waithaka.
Thank you.
And 4th of May, what time did you say the
10
time?
a.m.
10 a.m.
All Saints Cathedral, making bold investment choices, the Centonomy Open Day.
Alrighty.
It's free. It's free.
Yep. It's free. Okay. Well, thank you so much again. And thanks, guys, for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you're taking a relaxed day, maybe you're just spending time with your kids, or maybe you're hustling a little extra because this conversation inspired you. Whatever it may be, hope you enjoy yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Ooh, one more thing. Thank you to Cozy Residences as well. This is such a beautiful space. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. sharp, everybody. Bye.